everyone. Today on Women Atheists Unload, we're diving into Jordan Peele's groundbreaking horror film, Get Out. This movie isn't just about thrills and chills, it's a sharp, satirical take on racism and social manipulation. Peele uses horror to explore how deeply ingrained prejudices can be hidden under the surface of seemingly progressive communities. Get Out forces us to question the sincerity of allyship and the true state of racial dynamics in today's society. From a skeptical humanist perspective, it challenges us to recognize and confront uncomfortable truths about our culture and ourselves. Let's unpack the layers of this modern classic and see what it reveals about the human condition and social justice.
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away. As you fade away.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Women Atheists Unload, a show by women, but it is for everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon about this particular subject matter about Get Out. Something that we've been planning for about 2 months now, but I'm finally glad that we were actually able to have it. Now, of course, as you can see, I'm not by myself. I'm joined by a wonderful panel of women who I will introduce right now. Starting to my, I think this is my right, left, right, who cares? We first have one of our resident producers and also host, Miss Alma. Hi, Alma. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. I think it's going to be like a very interesting topic.
I think so too. Next, we also have right down below me is first time that we actually been on the stream together. Let's welcome Miss Carrie Morgan. Hey, Carrie, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great. I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to this discussion.
Awesome. And I'm glad that you are here with us. And also to my diagonal, right? I think. Let's just go with that. We have a woman who needs no introduction, president and founder of Black Non-Believers, and my dear sister from another mister, Miss Mandisa Thomas. Hey, Mandy, how you doing?
What's going on, Cynthia? Hello, Carrie, and hello, Alma. I'm very happy to be here with y'all this afternoon.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Okay, guys. So before we get into the topic, we're actually going to just, you know how like I like to do, I like to frame conversations around written material. So there is a song that happens to play throughout the movie called Sikadisa. And I wanted to read a little bit more from this Medium article about what that particular song means and why it was chosen to be, part of the movie. So this is from an article from medium.com, and it starts out as, can we talk about the Swahili song in Get Out? For several weeks, I have read some really thought-provoking pieces on the must-see Jordan Peele film Get Out. Very few, however, have touched on the powerful and very important Swahili song tucked in the film. For those who haven't seen the film, here's your disclaimer. Spoilers ahead. First and foremost, here is a complete translation of the song. Brother, listen to the ancestors. Run. You need to run far. Listen to the truth. Brother, listen to the ancestors. Run. Save yourself. To save yourself, rather. Listen to the ancestors. We are first introduced to the song in the beginning of the film, a clear and haunting warning, even for those who don't understand what the song says. We hear the song again during the party scene where Chris is asked to talk about the African American experience. The score ring through the awkward moment as if to say, pay attention, listen here. We also hear the song when Chris looks at the mounted deer head while standing over Jeremy's seemingly lifeless body. On a very serious note, Jeremy had the ungodly stamina of a mutant naked naked mole rat living in the sewer pipes of a major metropolitan city. Lisa, listen is whispered as Chris turns to look at the stag. Jordan has confirmed before that this song does serve as a warning for Chris throughout the film, and perhaps even more so for the audience. But I will believe it serves as even a deeper purpose, especially when put it in context in the larger discourse surrounding the film. There is often an unspoken understanding within the Black community that is informed by an omnipresent collective memory, and this song speaks to that very notion. There is a keen awareness that influences how Black people not only navigate macro systems, institutions of education, criminal justice, etc., but also interactions, not so micro fucking aggressions. The voices in the song are the voices we carry. The history books we read, or the elders in our community, or the countless videos of police brutality that serve as a haunting reminder to stay awake and attuned to the ways white supremacy reinvents itself every day. I cannot overstate how incredible an experience this film was. If you have not yet seen it, first of all, why did you read this fam? Or would like to experience the emotional roller coaster of the film once again, go to the theaters, but this time pay attention. This time, Lisa. Okay. So I am just going to go around the room. I am assuming that all of us have watched the movie at one point or another, or within the film itself. And I would like to get first impressions. Mandisa, since you're to my right now, whatever.
Sure. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I can. But, I saw the movie Get Out when it first premiered back in 2017 now. 2017 was when it dropped and became such a huge success. I really appreciate Jordan Peele, stepping out, of the comedy realm and getting into, the horror genre, especially horror that is centered around racism and injustice, which historically, my thoughts are that period in time is just right. It is pure just material for horror movies because it was such a horrific time. So it is the stuff that horror movies are made of. There's so much that can be taken from that and put into, a horror story. We also saw this, I was just thinking about Candyman. The movie Candyman that was redone back in, I think, 2021. Or it was another iteration, a future iteration that was based on the first one. And that one was also based on, racial injustice, lynching, and it is basically the story of a lynching, for those who have never seen it. So it's interesting how it makes for compelling horror. I don't want to say good horror because it was a good movie, but it makes for compelling horror because it was based on history, but also, like you said, things that, people are still carry. It shows how we still carry these things with us and how much of it is unresolved. Much of it is, very, very subliminal. People who may think that they're doing a good thing, or you find out that they really aren't. So, I did think it was very, very interesting. It did remind me of movies that I had seen before. Growing up in the Black conscious community, I watched all kinds of movies that, people have probably never heard of. For example, Mandingo and Drum that starred the late boxer Ken Norton. If you aren't familiar with those titles, you might want to look those up. Also, there was a movie years ago called House of Dreer. I forget who was in it. It might have been Louis Gossett Jr., but there are so many movies that were made. And I'm glad that now, that Jordan Peele was able to bring it to a new audience, for people who may not have been aware of those types of those types of movies and the subject matter. And I think it was very interesting how he brought, Daniel Kaluuya, who's a British actor, to the forefront, and also incorporate some older actors, some more veteran actors. So to me, it was a very, very well produced movie. And the material it very much reminds me of, for me, it wasn't surprising, but I think for those who've never had to think about racial justice and history in that way, it was an eye-opener. And I think it was really good to have brought it in such a manner that makes, people think, because that's always been my thing, right? We can enjoy these movies, we can enjoy the content, but we also have to think about the meanings that are within them. So I'm glad that the song was, translated from Swahili into, English. And having grown up celebrating Kwanzaa, I'm familiar with some Swahili language. So I thought it was very, very, I thought that was very, very impactful.
I forgot to tell everybody, Jambo. All right. Jambo in Swahili means hello, everybody. Anyway.
Cool, I learned a thing.
There you go. Well, since you're now talking, Carrie, what about you? What are your first impressions when you first heard? And thank you for that exposition, Mandisa. But yes, Carrie, what were your first impressions when you first watched the movie?
Well, I'm most of the way through it at this point. I think I've still got about 40 minutes or so to go, and even though we're getting spoilers tonight, I'm okay with that. Or this afternoon, I definitely plan to finish it. Up to this point, it's been like, whoa, like from the jump, from the very first moments of this film, it had me gripped. And when I researched it online and looked it up and figured out what it was about before I started it, that song in particular, that got me. I'm trying not to cry. I look white, but I actually have Native American ancestry. And yeah, listen to the ancestors. Run. Fucking run. It just, that connection from that side of my background to our African American friends, just, everybody needs to watch that. Everybody needs to listen to that, to really get that. And it kills me that in this day and age, in freaking 2024, what the hell, the whole racism issue. Why are we still dealing with that? We are still here. Black people are still here, and they're going to be here. Thank God that so much growth has happened, but there's still so much room. I live in Texas. And as beautiful as it is here, my particular part of Texas is great. The racism is rampant and upsetting. And it just makes me sick. This movie is, oh my God, I can't wait to get back to it. It's wonderful, and everyone needs to watch it.
Well, we won't keep you too long, Carrie, so that you can finish the rest of the movie. And as a person who has visited Texas on a couple of occasions, sorry. Anywho, but thank you for that. And then Alma, our sister from across the border. Yes, I am very curious to get your insight on what your thoughts were when you first watched this film. You're muted, love.
I apologize for that. I'm sorry. People might think that in Mexico there is no racism, right? That we are cool with everybody and we sing and hold hands with everybody. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We might not have the like the bold systemic racism as such, but we do have something called colorism, where you are told that you are beautiful as the lighter you are. Like example, in my family, my brother, my mom, well, my two brothers, my mom, they're as light as Carrie. Like they have light skin just like her, and I am dark skinned. So everybody was like, "Oh, poor you, you didn't got the good one." Um, and from facing that, and also from moving out to the US and seeing how it was not even what's even worse in there, like to see stuff like having people just talking and have microaggressions with other people, like telling to one of my friends who is African American, somebody just commenting like, "Oh, but you speak so well." Oh, now I was like, wow. or or even to me, as you know, and as I look very Mexican, they will be so, "Oh, I'm so surprised that you speak English. Oh my gosh, I never expected from you to do that." Okay. So yeah, I seen that this is a problem that is been happening everywhere, even though we um tried to say, "Oh, no, 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 it's gone." No, no, it's not. It's not. So, and you know, this kind of movies that make people think and make people uncomfortable, I think they are great because of that.
Yeah, they these movies like that he has done, you know, with Get Out, when he redid Candyman as well. Matter of fact, he filmed Candyman right here in Chicago. Got a chance to
Oh,
meet
okay.
one of the costumiers that he used in order to furnish like some of the clothing for that movie,
That's
and also there's Nope, and that deals with certain themes, like continuous themes of Get Out, and there was the other one with Lupita Nyong'o that it completely escapes me right now. But we're not talking about those movies. We're talking specifically about Get Out, and Alma, I almost want to do. I think that we can do a whole show based on, because I watched this about a couple years ago on Mejor a la Raza, especially when
Oh
they
yeah,
talked about
that.
colorism, and and it's funny that I remember having a back and forth with a conservative Mexican
Mhm.
who, when I mentioned Mejor a la Raza, he told me that there's nothing like that in Mexico.
Oh
I
yes,
said,
it is.
I told him, and I do apologize, but I said, "You lying sack of shit." Yes, there is.
Yeah. Yes. Yes,
Yes,
there
there
is.
is. Yes, there
Yeah.
is. That is a sentiment that is very much so echoed
Yeah.
throughout Latin American and also the Caribbean. Because like even like my mother's Caribbean, like those conversations about colorism, like the darker you are, the less beautiful you are versus the lighter you are,
Oh
the better
yeah.
looking you are. So, yeah, so those things exist. So,
Yeah, and it
yeah.
affect a lot of people in a lot of ways. I remember that when I was younger,
Hmm.
when I was trying to get my first job, I will try to improve to know like software and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and I will pass with flying colors all the tests that will put me through. But then somebody with lighter skin will show up, and they didn't know to do anything. They were like, yeah, you're higher. Sorry, Alma, you don't fill the profile. You are not what we're exactly looking for. Um,
that's so
and
gross.
yeah, yeah, you are not. And one time they actually told me, we can teach her to do things. We cannot change how you look.
Wow.
I don't have words.
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
I'm let's go back to the movie now, because like that
Yeah.
completely just like took all the words
Unfor-
from. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
am. It's it's sad. You know, it is very sad and awful, but not to me, not surprising.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And it's a shame.
Part. That's super gross that it's not surprising to any of us.
Right. But every time that you hear, I think that even for me, like, even though I'm not shocked, but I'm shocked. I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised. And I guess that, you know, I have to constantly go back into like, hey, this is the world that we live in, where like these things very much so affect our lives. But at the same time, you know it's gross, you know it's disgusting, you know it's something that should not be the case. And so I think that that's the part specifically for me that takes me aback, that makes me more in awe and speechless when I hear those things, because of the disgust that it actually like brings out. But you know, speaking of disgusting, let's talk about some of the metaphors that are in this movie. So I know that we are probably going to be showing a slideshow a little bit later, but you know, let's get into some of the portions of the movie itself. Now, if you haven't seen it, this is going to be heavy on spoilers, but I'm like, the movie came out in 2017. What have you been doing with your life since then? I mean, like, a lot of us was like in a whole pandemic and like I had a whole lot of time to watch movies. So hey, I'm just letting you know right now. Okay, anywho, now going back to the movie. So it first opens up with the character Andre walking down a very well manicured street in the dark, talking to a person on the phone while he's looking for their house. A car comes down the street and turns around and pulls up as he stops and looks. As he starts walking, the car starts to follow him. He turns back. The guy in the mask grabs him and chokes him and puts him in the trunk while the song Run, Rabbit, Run plays. Now, if you guys did not know, that Run, Rabbit, Run was a song that was written back in 1939. It was an English song that was actually written by a comedy duo that was actually used to poke fun of Nazis. So yeah,
Okay.
so that's actually, you know, the backstory for that. But when you listen to the lyrics of the song, it says, run rabbit, run, run, run. Bang, bang, bang goes the farmer's gun. Run rabbit, run, rabbit, run. So it serves as a warning per se to Andre, who happened to be, you know, in that particular neighborhood looking for the person. And then all of a sudden that song is actually like, you know, playing, even though the person who's going to be abducting him is playing it, almost like warning him in the beginning, this is what I'm going to do. Right. So let's talk a little, and then we get into the opening portion where they do this the Lisa song, and then right after that they play Childish Gambino's or Donald Glover's Stay Woke. So let's talk about a bit about that particular scene, like, you know, when we're seeing like that first abduction and the taking of Andre. Any person, if you guys want to jump in and just kind of just like expand on that, did you just see it as a surface thing? Did you happen to catch up on any metaphors in that? What do you think? Carrie, since I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, since I just saw that scene just a few minutes ago.
Sure.
I caught that immediately. The Run Rabbit Run, and I was like, oh shit, go, get out, and you know, obviously we know what happened. We saw the movie. I'm just still in awe of it, and I'm afraid I don't have all the words I want to say to express how I am inside about it and what my thoughts are. I haven't processed them yet because I haven't processed the movie. All I could feel or want to do is tell the guy to get the fuck out. Whoa, run, indeed, run. Listen to the ancestors.
You know, and also later on in the movie, we see that Andre has been processed, and when he is processed, he's with his, I guess, like the wife, and 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 it was kind of funny, like during the dinner scene, he's like turn around, showing off the new dig, like he's like, I'm almost like he's showing off his new, like, check out my new jacket, isn't it not, doesn't it fit so well, it's well tailored to me, don't you think, and then as we when Chris is specifically asked about the African American experience, and we can get into that a little bit more about what you guys' thoughts about, but Daniel Kaluuya's character Chris takes a photo of him because he looks familiar. A flash goes off, and then all of a sudden, like, Andre's real
him.
His real self is like back from the sunken place.
Creepy.
And he's again doing the get out, get the fuck away from here, so like it's like the very warning that he ended up, that he was receiving at the beginning of the movie was the one that he was given to Chris. So Alma, thoughts here when you was watching that? Did you look at a surface value, or were you looking more at it as a metaphorically?
I think I was looking at a little bit more as a surface value. But I always thought that being an atheist, the horror movies were like ruined for me because I did not believe in any of what I saw. But this type of horror was like more real, and it actually made me scream to the TV, like, run!
It's psychological. It's psychological. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha. What about you, Mandisa? Surface or metaphor? Why or why not?
Well, of course, there's always good metaphors. I don't think I was looking for the metaphors that time. I usually tend to watch movies more than once so that I can, so that I can pick up on them. But there were just so many things that struck me, especially about that particular scene, that the very, very old timey slave clothes that they had on the servants. I mean, that was definitely giving. I mean, it was giving all sorts of like red flags.
Let's get into that. But before you actually, because like we're going to move on to because I kind of want to set up the scene first, and then I want you to continue what you were saying. So the scene that Mandisa is talking about is when Chris and the girlfriend is finally at the parents' house, the Armstrong homestead, whatever, and I think it's the Armistead homestead is where they're at. And they're actually sitting and having a tea on the lanai together. And the servant, Jeannie, is like dressed up in this very old maid's outfit that the first thing that came to me when I first saw it was like The Help.
Yes.
That movie. Yep.
But yes, if I may interject, Cynthia.
Yes, please.
Even when Chris took the guy's picture, he was in that same getup.
Yeah.
Like his speech changed and everything. And yes, he was dressed in that old timey, very slave looking, outfit. But yes, they all were definitely like The Help, or definitely like very much beneath the guests that were there. And it was just like, clearly it was so apparent.
That's my question for you guys, and I really want you to kind of get into it. So like, let's talk about like the metaphor specifically. Thank you. When you're seeing, this is Dre, who is now not Dre. And we also had like a photograph of Jeannie, who is in the maid's outfit. Now, again, if you guys have not seen the movie, what's basically happening is that these people are being lobotomized, and part of their brains is actually being transferred from from the persons who are like, going to be taking over the body. So you can see that Jeannie is the woman that is pouring the tea into Chris's glass, and if you actually see what she looks like, her outfit is like really like this old The Help 1950s looking getup that she's in. So if we want to, oh my goodness, now I almost feel like I'm watching or reading like a Toni Morrison novel, because we're about to get into a lot of symbolism. So when we're looking at these, by the time that the people were lobotomized, transfers of brain matter has happened, and now they're assuming these new roles as far as like controlling the Black people's body. But the Black people are specifically in these domestic servile clothing, like and Mandisa, because I think that you can actually formulate more of the verbiage that I'm looking for right now when you're seeing that. Help me out.
Okay, so yes, the clothing that was worn by the controlled people and Black folks, because they were specifically Black, like I said, were reminiscent of and very much resembled what enslaved people wore back during those times. And so it was very there was a very specific look to it. It was, like, for example, the guy Dre's clothing was almost kind of sort of formal, but not really. It was definitely resembled like a servant's type of clothes or slave's clothing. And it represented definitely like the antebellum South, where there was clearly a class structure. There was a class structure between the Black and white folks there, but there was also supposed to be a certain, one thing I learned at the Whitney Plantation, which is based out of right outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, 45 minutes outside of there. The Brooks Brothers had a suit line for the enslaved, because when they were being sold or presented, they did not want them looking disheveled as they normally would. They actually had them dressed up when they were about to be sold. So, of course, it probably was not as grand as what the slave owners wore or people who had wealth or means had. But there was a line of clothing that Brooks Brothers made for enslaved folks when they were about to be sold. So they wanted them dressed up. They wanted them looking better. And that's what that kind of reminds me of. It was sort of a better look, but then not as much. And so, yeah, it was slavery, sharecropper era as well. Yes, the clothing was definitely subservient to what the other folks were wearing. But and again, sharecropping was not much different than slavery. It was a different form of slavery. For sure, because there were a lot of former enslaved who had to go, who actually sharecropped on their former plantations. So it's almost like they never left. So right.
Still trapped.
So yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. Like when you see like, okay, these people are now the controlled, right? And they're controlled by their white counterparts in their servile clothing, almost like a metaphor for, the controlling portion that is white supremacy, and how, and even though like, something as simple as a choice of clothing, like, if you, like when I read the lyrics to Run Rabbit Run, and it said, the farmer gets your gun, bang, bang, bang. The farmer gets the gun, run, rabbit, run. And if you look at Dre's outfit, he looked like a farmer.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
He did. He looked like like as you mentioned, Mandisa. It reminded me of how a farmer on a field that you share crop is dressed, even if it's like, and it looks like to me like a hand me down that came from like an overseer or from maybe the master, that wasn't so beat up, but still showed that this is your particular place when you are looking at the way that these people, the way that they are dressed. So I want to talk to this other scene about when they hit the deer. So they're on their way to the Armiston home, Chris and the girlfriend, and then they hit. They are talking. He was talking to his friend who was a TSA agent, and that comes up a couple times. So remember, TSA is very important because according to him, they get shit done. And when he was talking to him and they got off the phone, she ends up hitting a deer, but it's not dead. Chris gets out the car and he goes into the woods and finds it, and they call the police, and then the cop stops them and talks to them, and she was the one who was driving, but the cop asked for his ID. Now she sticks up for him, like saying, like, why do you need his ID? How he wasn't the one that was driving. And then the cop lied and said some BS about, well, when there's an accident involved, I have to find out everybody's ID. And she's like, no, you don't, So this is like, yes, this is the scene, like, and he was about to get it. He's like, because Chris is like, I know the deal, I know the drill. This is basically what we need to do as Black folk to stay alive when we are encountering cops. So let me just comply. But her is like stepping in, like, you don't have to comply. I am here. I'm going to stick up for you as the white ally. So when you guys are looking at this, and you're seeing the interaction between her and the cop and Chris that's on the side, that's kind of like, I'm about to comply because that's the best way to stay alive. What were you guys like thoughts, or even like when you hear any of that, what are your thoughts? I'm going to start with you. Oh, who was going to talk? Carrie?
Yeah.
Carrie, then Alma, then Mandisa.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt or anything.
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So my first thoughts, like from the jump with this movie, I was suspicious of her to begin with. She just seemed way too fucking accommodating. I don't know. Something about her allyship was just a little too much. A little, I don't know, a little too syrupy. A little too sugary. Just something just seemed off to me. And so when I saw this interaction with her and the cop, I was like, something about the cop's demeanor made me think that he was suspicious of her. And like who's this dude? Maybe we need to watch out for him. I don't know what it was, and I can't pinpoint it, but the way that man acted and portrayed that character made me think that character is suspicious of this chick. And maybe he's thinking, something weird is going on at that homestead, something weird, and why? And so maybe that was my thought there, that he was suspicious of her and her family, because maybe how many young Black men has he seen disappear over there? You know what I mean?
Remember later on, Chris found a slew of photographs of her with these people. Because I remember at the beginning of the movie, he asked her, how many black people have you dated before me? And she said none.
Yeah.
And then come to find out later on in the movie, the test results revealed that was a lie. Yeah. So I was like, just like the phony allyship in the beginning.
Yeah.
Is it so like? so like you said that you kind of picked up that, you know, that something wasn't quite right with the allyship when you first saw it.
Yeah.
Mandisa, when you saw the movie, like, because you said that you saw it when it first came out in at the theaters, did you still have that, you know, that's this looks sus a little, I'm a little skeptical.
I
you know.
did.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
did. It seemed way too over the top. And it does actually kind of remind you of, you know, what we would call like a Karen, right? Even though the Karen is only concerned about, you know, the Karen is only concerned about themselves, but it just, and also you see some white people jumping in on this thing, like even more so than it seems like, you know, she's doing the right thing, but then it's like, well,
but why?
You seem to be right. Like, yeah, you seem to be kind of going real hard on this. Yeah, why? I mean, I understand this is your boyfriend and everything, but yeah, it seemed very, very over the top for me as well.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
it definitely gave. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It gave it gave sus vibes. And I had to, and I was looking at it like, I don't think that I picked that up at first when I first saw it. But then again, you know how you think about things after the fact, right? And I remember, and Mandisa, you can kind of like co-sign on this. When we attended Women of Color Beyond Belief, I want to say 2021, and I forgot the speaker's name, but she was specifically talking about how, you know, white allies can overstep when it comes to, you know, issues that happen to be outside of their wheelhouse, saying that, you know, you so gung-ho and you feel that you can kind of lead better, but, you know, you're taking over instead of just letting us lead, especially since this is our issue. And after I watched that scene again, after we attended the conference, my mind constantly goes back to that, like that whole okay, I'm an ally and I want to help the poor Black people. So I'm going to step in and I'm going to, you know, tell this cop a thing or two about, you know, how he was behaving. Now, do I agree with what she was saying? Yeah. There was no reason for him to have his ID. There was no reason for him to be questioned. The only thing that he was doing was just riding in the car. And that's it. But the person who had control over the car, the person who was, you know, who was in charge at that particular time was the girlfriend, right? Who, again, I keep on forgetting that girl's name. Rose. Regardless, Rose, yes. Thank you. Yes. So, you know, so Rose was in control of the car. So the only person that really needed to be questioned was her. She told him what happened. So he's like, hey, I need your ID. Like, whoa. Now, and I'm thinking to myself, and this is to me, this like on a personal level. I've been stopped by cops before. But when I stopped by the cops, I was never like on the side where I had to be questioned. I was always like the driver. So it was always implied that, yeah, I'm going to give you my ID, right? But I've known how other people who happen to be, you know, in the vehicle with others, where that has happened. So, you know, it's not something that's out of the ordinary that, you know, people can actually relate to, as far as like being questioned by the police, even if they happen not to be the driver. So, you know, it's kind of like it was almost like, maybe, I don't know if it was like a quid pro quo per se, but it definitely was this thinly veiled portion of allyship that had an ulterior motive, as we come to find out later on. But yeah, I mean, so like Mandisa, I'm gonna come back to you because you were at the conference, obviously, because you were the host. But but yeah, like but you know, is that something that you thought of as far as like, you know, watching that, or just like something that, you know, you could relate to when it comes to dealing with like, you know, maybe like a Black social justice issues, but having, you know, white allyship actually overstep?
Woo, there are a few things I could say about that, right?
Sure.
So you have,
we're here for it.
Lay it on us.
I look at it, you know, I see it from a historical perspective, but also even in the current community. And I think I know who you're talking about. As far as, yes, the one being one of the primary producer for Women of Color Beyond Belief, I will claim that. But what I see is, you know, also, yes, you see a lot of, you know, folks who, and I think genuinely support racial justice issues, but fall far short when it actually comes to like doing it in, you know, like sufficiently. You know, you have folks who definitely want to speak on it. You know, everything is, it also reminds me of someone I know, or, you know, someone who you know, we're both familiar with, Cynthia, who, it reminds me of also people who have Black partners, but then, or Black male partners, but then, you know, how they treat Black women is totally different. And so, you know, it's very, very interesting, you know, but then even in this space that of this community that we are in, with very well-meaning people who want to know more, who want to learn more, but then when we express what it is that we need and how they can support more, we're still finding that we're not getting, or we're still working harder to get the support that we need. And so that always, you know, or there's a certain type or level of person of color who, you know, who they want to push as the, you know, as the, you know, spokesperson. So there's so much, and I'm sorry if I'm all over the place there, but really,
No.
it comes from, you know, like it definitely comes from real, you know, real experiences, real encounters, but also the history that we study, the history that I've learned about extensively growing up. But all, you know, just, I also think of you know, like Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail.
Yeah.
He didn't write it to white racists. He was writing it to the, you know, to the church who was supposed to be on the side, because they felt like he was too radical. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, he was seeing people getting beat, killed, people's properties were being damaged, and they said that for him, he was being too radical. So it wasn't to the opposition that he was writing this to. He was writing to people who were supposed to be allies and supporters, who were trying to check him.
Right.
And we see this a lot in spaces, and sometimes it's done behind the scenes, because like we said, she put on quite the show,
yeah,
for the police officer. But then when it came to the microaggressions, and as we saw later, we saw that she was not, you know, she was not an ally at all. So so yes, sorry if that went all over the place, but you know, I tend to notice a lot of that, and encounter a lot of that. So being a leader and organizer in this community.
Yeah, and you know, like, and going back to what you were talking about in the Birmingham, the letter from the Birmingham jail, specifically from Dr. King when he was arrested after a demonstration. This was I wanted to read this one part too, that he said, I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizen counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who's paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from the people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Yes, and the reason why I was dancing earlier because it was about to get thick up in here. When you was talking, I was like,
oh yeah, well I'm always telling, And the thing is that, like I said, there are very well-meaning people, but then when some of us, some folks are not as gentle. I always try to be tactful,
right?
and coming from a historic place, because it's very, very important that even though Get Out is a work of fiction, it is definitely based on what we are dealing with systemically, and institutionally, and certain parts of history. And we can't ignore that. There's so much that we can reference to, that many Black leaders and many Black folks have experienced, from white folks who were supposed to be allies at the time. I know Ida B. Wells, who was one of my heroines. Susan B. Anthony. Once Ida B. Wells got married to her husband, Susan B. Anthony told her that her place was in the home.
Yeah.
It was like, wait a minute. So she had to deal with that out of these people who were supposed to be her allies and the people that she was fighting alongside. So you're getting it, like you said, half the time it's not even the folks who it's not even the folks who can't stand you. It's at times from within that
your own camp.
And yes, it's your own camp. And sometimes people who are, they are not paying attention to, their own biases or what have you. And but also, again, those who seem to be meaning well.
Right.
Have, like you said, have always been a bit of, have been this problem.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
Right. Yes. Like, like I remember being on a stream a couple of years ago. I think this is at the height of the pandemic. And I think that we were talking about reparations. And one of the people who happened to be on the panel was saying, well, I agree with it. However, I think that at this particular time, we should take baby steps. And it reminded me about that timetable that Dr. King was talking about. Like, let's slow this thing down when it comes to another person's freedom, right? And I had to say, I have to interject on you really quick, but we've been doing baby steps for over 150 years. When are we going to actually take the actual real step? Yeah, when we're going to do something to make it actually a reality.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's bring up some other stuff that was happening. I'm about to go a little bit further down because I want to give a shout out to the crew, Kat the Humanist, for putting together a beautiful document that is helping guiding our conversation. Thank you, Kat. You rock. You are the bee's knees. And I just had to give that out. And before we go on, I was wondering if it was a possibility if we can highlight a couple of comments which were really good in the chat. This one first was from Rion Cultastic, when she says, yes, the white people screaming all we want is peace while standing on your neck. Word. That's a great comment. Thank you, Ryan, for that. And then also from the MisfitAmish, which I believe is also another host that comes on to Women Atheists Unload. Good intentions don't mean people are capable to do the work. They need to do the address systemic and institutional oppression. Word to your mother.
Yes,
word to your mother. So let's get into the infamous party scene. And so this is the next day after Chris was hypnotized by the teacup, and he first experiences the sunken place. And I need to go ahead and look up, especially when we're talking about like the sunken place and what that really means. But before I do that, let's just set up the scene. So people are starting to arrive for the party, and a guy asked him if he plays. This is like people coming to the party that basically is there to bid on Chris. They're bidding to be the white person that is going to be controlling him, for their own means and purposes. And I thought it was a little tongue in cheek too, that Jordan decided to also throw in one Japanese person as well, specifically to ask the question about the African American experience. So I thought that was really very interesting, his choice when it came to that. And it kind of reminds me, even with that, with all these people that are there to basically bid on Chris in order for him to be the next person on the auction block, that, even though one of the people who happened to be bidding is an Asian person, it still shows like the how white supremacy is pervasive, and how it's also to the point where it can definitely seep into other people who want to be adjacent to it in order for them to garner power. And that's definitely something that we see, because like when you look at white supremacy in of itself, it's very hierarchical. It's not a flat organization. And depending on how people are maneuvering through it, they may recognize that if I actually enter this particular way with white supremacy, I can be adjacent to it and be able to get power myself. And you see that very much so when it comes to how America is laid out, right? So going back to that whole scene. So so one of the people who comes up to Chris and says, hey, do you play golf? And then he says that he said maybe once, and then he said Tiger. That's a guy. That's that guy. Another guy says black is in fashion. So like the guy who also like, yeah, I love golf and I love Tiger. Tiger's a great guy right there, right? And yes, and these are like talking about Tiger Woods, and like of course weird. It is. It was, but was it? Like, especially like when you're looking at the message that was being conveyed, right? Yeah. So like you got, so like people are like all looking at him, like sizing him up as like the commodity that he is. They're just basically just looking at him, and that's very much so like apropos to what we're discussing, like Chris is the commodity. He is the person that is on sale. He is the one. He's the product. Right, that's being displayed out here, and the party was just basically a chance for people to kind of get to know the product, almost like going to like a car dealership and looking at the different cars and trying to like look around to see which one catches your eye the best. So welcome back, Alma.
I'm sorry, I got a bit of technical issues.
Oh, we're not going to talk about technical issues. Just look at last week's show. Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after he gets a little bit overwhelmed, he suddenly recognizes, he sees a guy he recognizes, a young guy named Logan, who is evidently married to an older white woman. That's actually Dre. All right. Now he then meets a blind guy who is an art dealer that he knows, and he knows his works. And he goes into the house and he sees that his phone is unplugged. He calls his friend Rod and he starts telling him how that he got hypnotized and that it worked. And his friend says that they could be doing all sorts of shit to him and mentions Jeffrey Dahmer. And he says that he thinks that the mom is putting them all in a trance and is, you know, messing with them. And then Georgina comes into the room, apologizes for unplugging the phone. She says the Armitages are too good to them and treats them like family, right? So basically, you know, saying like, "Ooh, these are some good people. These some good white people right here. You know, they the salt of the earth." You know what I'm saying? I mean, Django Unchained, that's a whole nother movie. Regardless of that, yeah. So like, you know, yes, and we know this is those are the parents of Rose, the psychiatrist and the neurosurgeon working in tandem to basically get people ready for the commodity block, right? But yeah, so like we just wanted to just go back to this whole thing about like basically being put on display, right? And how what does that invoke for you as far as like metaphorically in today's society about, you know, really like, you know, being like this person to be looked at, gawked at, stared, and possibly, you know, etc.
Okay, so I'm going to start.
Yes, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, no, because I know I saw all up in your face.
Yes, so this actually, it goes historically and currently about how there are, you know, like collectively Black folks are considered to be, you know, we're considered to be inferior, but yet also a commodity at the same time, you know. And we have to remember also too that during the enslavement period, you know, there's this the myth of the super Negro, or the, you know, the even like the magical Negro, right? And there were certain enslaved people that were breeders, and that they, you know, they specifically had them, you know, they breeded them to be these very strong, very, you know, like physically capable beings for the service and even pleasure of white people and for exploitation purposes. And that's definitely what came to mind when they were sizing him up. That you certainly will look down on, you know, Black folks, but you certainly want to benefit from what you know or you think you can get from us. And again, it's also very, you know, it was like I said, it was financially exploitive, sexually exploitive. It was all of those things. And I'm going to, you know, it reminds me of so many other movies, right? Have you ever seen Spike Lee's She Hate Me?
No, I saw She's Gotta Have It.
Okay, yeah, well, I like that one too. But there's a lot of symbolism in that particular movie about like the notion of the Black buck, if you will, you know, the one who, you know, the white people, the white women were supposed to hate, but yet secretly desired. And remember, that was also the catalyst for a lot of lynchings, where Black men would be falsely accused of rape and sexual assault, even though they were carrying on consensual relations. Of course, it was illegal, but that was at the core of many lynchings back then. You know, were these interracial relationships, these interracial engagements that people either found out about and then folks lied about. So yeah, but it comes from this, you know, this notion that, you know, like especially Black men, and how, you know, they're supposed to be, you know, more physically capable sexually. You know, they all have big giant penises. You know, there's all these sexual stigmas that have come along with Black folks that many whites still carry. And that definitely came to mind when I saw that, because I thought it was very, of course, it was supposed to be financially beneficial,
right,
to be able to horrifically bid and then subjugate this person.
right.
So it's definitely the history of it, knowing it, and Jordan Peele bringing all of that into it, that just really brought it home for me, and I was like, wow.
Guys, I have to interrupt this very stimulating conversation and say we have a super chat. You didn't ask for all that, but you got it.
Oh no, I'm glad we got it. That was beautiful.
I'm glad we got it.
Oh my goodness, Michael Beverly, thank you so much, giving us 100 MX dollars. Okay, marks. Are those marks?
No, I think in Mexican pesos.
Mexican pesos. I will take it. Thank you. Thank you for 100 Mexican pesos. Michael says, just stumbled into the stream. I recently did a video and read they were her property. Oh my God, Michael. Okay. For research, insane things I didn't know before about American history. White women were given slaves as birthday presents. Yes, they were. Let me tell you something, Michael. I read they were her property. It took me at least about a good month and a half to get through it. That that book was so infuriating. And you know how, like, Carrie, you started to cry at the beginning of the stream because you were just thinking about, like, some of the things that you in your own culture can experience and kind of really relate to. That's how I was during that's how I was while I was reading They Were Her Property. I had to put the book several times down. And
well, no wonder it took you a month and a half,
Yeah, I did. I mean, like, I was determined to get through it because I knew it was important, but at the same time, it was so infuriating, frustrating, and it really made me, and it really depressed me.
Heavy.
I mean, like, almost got like side trauma from it, because, like, the book it's very accurate, and it goes into very detail about how white women were 40% of the slave owners in the South, in antebellum South, and how they, in some cases, could be just as bad or even just as worse as their white men counterparts when it came to the treatments of their slaves. And, like, and a lot of times, slaves were given as birthday gifts. They were given as dowries. They were given, and they also used them for their own enrichment as well. There's one story in the and it kind of relates to what we're talking about, so might as well. There's a story in the book about a slave owner woman who was counting money. And because it was talking about how there was a slave mother who had, her children stayed with, the master, his wife, the owner, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. She left. She was given permission to go visit someone else. So when she came back to resume her duties, the little girl, her daughter, was looking at the white slave owner woman while she was counting money, and then the little girl said, "That's brother. That's brother." She sold the boy for a new dress.
Oh.
Okay.
And these are people we're talking about here.
Right.
These are human beings.
Yeah.
That were, because when you can dehumanize people, when you can actually think about, how people, and I consider myself fortunate that I learned this stuff at an early age.
Yeah.
I appreciate the time period that I was brought up in, and that my mother's my mother took us to these types of even though it was heavy for us as kids, these were things that we needed to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it says a lot about the education system that people don't want. They didn't want this information,
right?
They did not.
It's because it's not flowery. And to be honest, like when you really like look at the history of this country, how it was built on the backs of Black folk and also on the genocide of Native people. We see that America has a lot of blood on its hands, and and telling the truth when it comes to our history and how America was formed and how it still operates may interrupt the narrative on how great really America is. Instead of like saying that America is so great because the people who came here were such great pioneers and they lifted themselves up by their own bootstraps, and then they were able to formulate this more perfect union, right? And this pillar of democracy and the beacon of light to the world. Or do we really tell the truth and say that this country was built as a genocidal, slave-holding state that exploited people in order for it to gain world social and economic power? And that's one of the things that I really just like appreciate about Get Out in of itself, is being a way to tell these stories in a film, even though we can be entertained, but at the same time look at it informatively and really possibly take like maybe a mirror at ourselves as being people who happen to be in this country who have benefited off of the atrocities that have happened in the past, and in some cases are still happening to this day. I'm going to stop talking because Alma is back, and also so you can get a chance to say some things, and then like Harry, I want you to kind of jump into the conversation as well, because so Alma, it's like reflection of like that whole scene about the commodity, the product.
Yeah, and is that stereotype has been also here in Latin America. And you know what? Sometimes even that stereotype of the big strong man and being with like the large penises and everything has also been used to embarrass people. Like I have seen things on the incel forums and stuff like that, where they're like, oh, you know what, you might be a white gal, but now you have been with a black dude, so you are ruined forever. Like, it's so horrible.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And they are put like, oh, that white lady with a mixed kid, yeah, that kid probably doesn't have a dad.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yep. So it's used in a way it might have been used to praise them at some point, but now it's being used like as an insult.
Funny how that happens, huh? Just basically just using like the very thing that you're using these people for, you're stereotyping these people for, but at the same time you are also using propaganda and your own clout in order for you to profit from it. It's it's really crazy. I mean, even if we're just even going back to that whole dynamic between like specifically like white woman and black man, because that's what was actually being shown in the film. if we even go back to history, as you know, Mandisa, you mentioned previously, we can think of the Tulsa race riot and Tulsa massacre actually started because of an accusation from a white woman that a black man assaulted her. Same thing with Rosewood.
With Rosewood.
That white woman accused the black man of assassinating her. We even have what we consider the kickoff of the civil rights movement with the death of Emmett Till, where it was an accusation from a white woman that a little black boy,
14 years old,
14 years old, yes, supposedly whistled at her, and come to find out that that was all made up, completely fabricated, and she went to her deathbed, you know, with that on her as a blight, as a blot to her whole character. And unfortunately, because of one accusation, caused a myriad of people to lose their lives, their property, and just upend them, that they had to carry those things for like the rest of their lives, and also affected generations after them. Carrie, jump in, say things.
Oh man, say things. Well, going back to the movie and discussing commodities, watching oh God, I think they were in the kitchen and he had just been introduced to somebody. And the lady, this white lady, she comes up and she just starts like feeling his muscles. I'm like, oh yeah, and looking at him and shit. And it was like, what are you doing? Oh man, that really fucked with me. And to tie into what we're already discussing, people still do that now. Maybe not quite so obnoxiously. I work with the public. I have a very customer-facing job, and I see it. I see it, and I deal with it. I have been witness to certain behaviors that I'm, you know, it's a customer interaction. I can't really, you know, I can't get involved there. But when I do see and have seen racism in the workplace, I take it to HR immediately, and they deal with it. But like even now, like again, 2024, why are we looking at people as a commodity? You're a freaking human being. Every single one of us is a human being. And just based on the fact that we exist, we also have the freedom to just be. I'm not here for your entertainment. You're not here for my entertainment or pleasure or displeasure. Like, we're not cattle. None of us are cattle, and we shouldn't be treated as such. And the fact that it still happens is mind-blowing to me. It's just such a fucking head trip.
Oh yeah, and there is something that it bothers me a lot when I was over there in the US, that people just will come up to, you know, African American folk, and they would just grab their hair.
Ah, yes.
That's like, what the hell?
Don't touch me.
I had to get Bruce Lee judo chopped on a few people real quick, like, you know, oh, look at you.
Yeah. As you said.
Step away. Step away.
Yep.
I am not a pet.
No.
Or to the little children. I remember that. Oh, I hated that. And I was also like working customer service, and I will see just white ladies just going after to the little kids. Oh, look at this hair. Dude, it's not your kid. Don't touch.
Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah, I oh my gosh. That takes me, when you just said that, you know, Mandisa, you know where I'm about to go. Read my mind real quick. Read my mind. Read it. Come on, girl.
Do you?
Read it.
You're there.
Diddly. Where am I going? Where am I going, movie buff?
Oh my gosh.
The little kids being touched by the white woman.
Oh yes, The Color Purple.
Thank you, Miss Millie. Oh, your children are so
yes.
Cool. Do you want to be my
name? My gosh. The perfect example of what a quote unquote white ally was supposed to be. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes. Woo!
That's another movie we may have to discuss one day. The Color Purple, the old version, not this new crap that they put out, but the old version with Whoopi and Oprah and Danny Glover and gal, you gonna sit here while you being insulted at your own dinner table? My goodness.
The late great Adolf Caesar.
Yes,
Oh
Mr.
my
Caesar.
God. But we digress.
Yes, we do digress, because guess what? We got another super chat. Got another 100 pesos from Michael Beverly. And Michael says, so much sadness in the world. I hope this plug is okay. I'm hosting Black Atheist Rants tonight, 9 p.m. I think it's going to be a good conversation. If anyone wants to join, drop in and say hello. Yes, that will be bar Black Atheist Rants all the way down there in Tennessee. Please, guys, if you just put in Black Atheist Rants on YouTube, give Bar a sub. Always has a really cool conversation. I've been on that stream a couple of times previously, but yes, it's on Eastern time. Thank you, Michael. But yes, we don't mind you shilling, especially since you gave us money, so we appreciate that very, very much. And as Michael has demonstrated, guys, Skeptic Haven is monetized, so please throw us a super chat here and there. We will read your comments on air. Also, we can tell you other ways that you can support us. Also, another thing that you can do is like this video, subscribe to Skeptic Haven, hit the bell for our notifications so that you can get a notificaciones to tell you every time that we go live. And Women Atheists Young Lows actually does come on Saturdays, but we do have a host of programming that you can actually see all week long. So please, as Kyle Kalinske says, hook a sister up with a sub. Thank you. So yes, going back to the movie, and guys, we're going to go ahead and go to the end, since we've been streaming for a minute now. But so let's get to the point where we're talking about when Chris has finally been bidded on, and he has been resunken and is tied to the chair. Yes, this is the first time that he first got sunk, and then towards the end, as we're like getting to the climax, Chris is in a room where the buckhead horn is actually at, and he is sitting on a chair where he's being explained to why he was chosen and how the process works, and how he himself was going to live in a perpetual state in the sunken place. Now, if I do a little quick Google search, because I think this is important. It's a sunken place. Okay. So the sunken place actually represents a state of powerlessness and oppression, illustrating the struggles faced by Black artists and storytellers. Chris's escape from the sunken place is a symbolic act of resistance, using cotton as a tool to reclaim a symbol of oppression and survive systemic oppression. So in the movie itself, Chris feels where there's like some cotton because he kept on scratching the surface of the chair that he was sitting in. So he scratched it so much that the cotton started to come out of the armrest. He feels the cotton. And then under there, he uses like the tool under that in order to get himself free. So, I thought it was quite brilliant to use that as a metaphor to show like the very thing that was mostly associated specifically with chattel slavery is the picking, the selling, and the use of cotton, because at the onslaught, cotton was considered king cotton, which was the number one export of the United States. And several countries, including United Kingdom, had a big who was impacted bigly. That's not a word, but I just made it one. Haha. On cotton and how it was utilized in order because that's what they used to make their clothing. So they were super interested in the Civil War in of itself because they were concerned about how that would affect the textile industry because they relied on cotton so much. And now that you got people who are possibly going to be laborers and getting paid instead of actually just being bought and sold previously, how would that affect the sale of that particular commodity? So it was very interesting, but and like I said, I thought it was very brilliant on how Jordan Peele used that that symbol, that metaphor, in order to show about that escape. I don't know, Carrie, if you got that far into the movie just yet.
No, not quite. The farthest I've gotten is they're in the yard area and there's a gazebo and they're holding up bingo cards.
Oh yeah, that was the auction.
Yeah, yeah,
that was the
that's
auction.
it. I ended it like the first thing I saw was just one bingo card, and then I had to pause. So.
Okay, yeah,
I'm interesting to look at later. I'm excited for it.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was what Carrie is describing is the auction that was happening. Chris's picture is put up, and people are bidding on him, and it was a silent auction. So he's going, can I get 5? Can I get 6? Can I get 7? I think that he ended up going to 7. It's going 10 to 11, sold for this amount, and then the person was able to purchase him in order to use them. And the sunken place, was really when I heard Carrie's mother's previously say, when he was hypnotized, now you're in the sunken place. So using my powers of white supremacy, I have placed you in an oppressive state. That, that's the thing that really pushed me. Yeah, go ahead, Mandy.
I think what got me was, and I really encourage people to, the way that he was going to stay in a sunken place and the person who won the bid, it would have been horrific. It really would have. So it also, there's a level, of course, when you're talking about bidding on people, you're also talking about trafficking.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because the transatlantic slave trade was trafficking.
Right.
It was trafficking in a number of ways. And so we often don't put that in that, in that context, but it was. Right. It was human trafficking.
Right.
And and which is, of course, it should, it is a human rights violation, human rights crime. But yes, it definitely, the point of them bidding was definitely trafficking.
Right.
As well. Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about other things that actually do happen and talk about like black market stuff.
Right.
So I highly recommend seeing that part and you'll be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to mention one thing regarding how bad that was, the trafficking and everything was for every people who got affected by it. I remember that a long time ago I was watching a show, I think it was called Who Do You Think You Are? Where they will just grab some celebrity and they would just follow their ancestry, and sometimes with people like Brooke Shields or any other white actor, they will go all the way to, I don't know, 14th century Europe, and they will find what happened to their ancestors and everything. But I saw like a common theme with the African American celebrities. All of them, their history will stop at the slavery trade. They couldn't know anything beyond that because there was no way. There was no way to find out. So I think that is something like they rob the history from people.
Yeah.
They just destroy it. they don't. There's a lot. If this was with celebrities, they're supposed to be like, well connected and everything.
Right.
Like the people in general, they really don't have anything.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, just like this, using myself as an example, I decided to do some digging in my own history, and I traced my earliest ancestor to 1800, and I traced them to, I believe, Virginia, and that person was considered like a farmer, which was coded language for field worker, slavery field worker, who married another person from Virginia. Then they ended up moving to North Carolina, who was 40 years his junior. And she was, and this was like on her census records later on, considered a mulatto, which means that she was of mixed ancestry. More than likely, her father was the master, the slave master, and the mother was like the actual slave, and she was born into slavery as well. So that's as far as I got, as far as like, my, how far back I could possibly go. I used a lot of census records, clippings, birth certificates, death certificates. After a while, found out that, I had 3 generations on my father's side that served in the military. And I was able to kind of get some more information concerning them and, how they ended up. But that's the narrative for a lot of us who happen to be African American in the United States, that, and I understand that, because and I'm pretty sure that Mandisa can relate to this, being from the conscious community, where it's often said that, well, your history is not just at chattel slavery. And they're right. It's not. But it's still not something that, could be to the point where any of us could really point to what specific tribe our ancestors came from the continent of Africa, right? We have like some DNA testing that can give us an idea, but if you really think about the transatlantic slave trade and basically how they were marching bodies from different tribes on the west coast of Africa and also Central Africa, and those tribes end up intermingling and intermixing with one another. So there could be a ton of different folks that's in the background that, that could be who you are related to as well, right? But in order for you to be able to find out a lot of these things, like, you would have to like run a DNA test. It's not like, you're able to do this big, exhaustive connection. I'm pretty sure that maybe some people were able to do it, but it's pretty rare that any of us who happen, to be African American are able to do that, past that. Shout out to Alex Haley, he was able to do certain, research in that particular case, but that's not usually the case for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Yes. So this so like, let's just get to the last scene. Yes, this is Dr. Kevorkian. No, it's not Dr. Kevorkian. This is the
kind of like that.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of, but this is the neurosurgeon, Rose's father, who was actually performing the lobotomy procedures on the customer and also the commodity to start to meld their gray matter together. And they were prepping the one customer who purchased Chris and was going to have Jeremy go and get Chris. Jeremy is Rose's brother, who was also the one who kidnapped Dre, while also playing Run Rabbit Run on his car, and towards the beginning of the movie. And this is where Also where Chris was able to get himself free and basically went through the whole family and caused a lot of damage. Okay. Sorry, Carrie, spoilers.
That's okay.
Yeah. So this, when I look at this particular scene, especially with this particular still, and gosh, it was
I think that was like the most scary for me.
Yeah, but the main word that came to me was calculated. But yeah, but talk about that. What were your thoughts, Alma?
Yeah, to me it was like, oh, is this really gonna happen? Like, it seems that there is no way out of this, at that moment, and that's what got me like in the edge of my seat. It was like, oh my god, what is gonna happen? Is he really going to end up like that? It kind of remind me like, that the Skeleton Key, that movie,
Yeah.
the new one with um where they were saying like, oh, next time I want to have a body of a black woman or something like that.
Yeah.
And they did got away with it. The people who were doing the things. I thought that it was going to be kind of like the same ending when I saw that scene the first time.
Mhm. Mhm. But we had to have somewhat of a happy ending, I guess. I guess. Even like the flashing of the camera was kind of like the light that just kind of gave like the people their aha moment to actually come out of the sunken place, at least for a moment, right? Remember when Grandpa came out of his sunken place and how that looked?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And but at the same time, how that looked. Anyone want to talk about that? Hi, Jordan.
That one.
So this is towards the end when Chris fights his way out and they go outside, and remember Rose has a shotgun, right?
Yeah.
And then she says, Grandma, because like remember Chris hit her with the car. He puts her in the car because he didn't know that was like the grandmother and grandfather that was like the servants per se that was on their the Armistons' home. And then she says, "Get him, Grandpa," and of course Grandpa starts to run and to basically tackle Chris to the ground. And he has the shotgun, and then the first thing that Chris realizes that in order to get him to kind of like wake up, right? This is where we get the song "Stay Woke," is to use the flash in order for him to wake up from the sunken place, right? And then after that, and what ends up happening is that Grandpa is suppressed. The original personality of that person comes out, and then he basically shoots Rose and then shoots himself. Yeah. Now, one of the things that reminded me of that is how some of the people who were trafficked through the transatlantic slave trade unalived themselves. Because like they were being taken from their homes, taken from everything that they knew on these strange places, treated like dog shit, stuffed in these compartments that they could barely move. And a lot of times they would be in these compartments for like 3 to 4 months before they were able to hit dry land. And then some people decided instead of actually continue, like they continued. They decided to go ahead and just like just leave this earth per se. Mandisa, I know I see your face. Go ahead.
No, there were many folks that were being trafficked over who jumped off the ships. Yeah, there's a report that sharks would follow the ships. because they knew that either folks would jump overboard or they would be thrown overboard if they felt that they were being, too rebellious. But yes, there were folks who thought it better that they did not live rather than live like that.
Right.
There were a number of folks who did. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. They. Yeah. I think that if any person saw the first Black Panther, and Killmonger talked about that, how like a lot of the folk that was coming from African and transatlantic slave trade. Thank you, Skeptic Haven. Actually, rather take their chances in the ocean than actually live in a life unknown under oppression. Like, I'd rather die free than live live in bondage. And yeah, you're right about the tales of sharks that follow. Matter of fact, this is interesting. There are supposedly there are still sharks that travel that route to this day. Wow. That have some type of memory per se. I guess that was like transported down from their ancestors about possible like blood in the water from when people like basically like jumped off of the ships, and they could actually like get to them and eat them as food. It was there's so many layers to not only just the movie, but how it's a reflection on life. Yeah. And how even Jordan Peele uses these different metaphors to show, macro systems and microaggressions, and how they still are, even though that they have like a root, right, from the time that we first came up with the concept of race, which is completely made up. It is not steeped in science. It's not steeped in anything empirical. It's basically was a way for, at the time, Virginia white planters to be able to change the labor force from indentured servitude to slavery. And they use those particular cases in order for them to be able to basically have, by the time 1700 rolled around, the labor force in America was primarily slaves. Yeah, I was going to actually address that, but thank you for taking that off. I was going to actually address that whole,
like what about baptism? Yeah, I don't like that. I hate that.
Yeah.
Hey, what about no?
Right. Yeah. We're not doing what about it. Yeah, we're not doing what about isms today.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Well, what about this and what about that? No, we're not talking about what about this. We're talking about that. So, stay on topic, right? But but thank you, mods, for doing the damn thing about picking out trolls. We appreciate you very much. Yes. So, but yeah, there's so many layers, and one of the things that like I just appreciate about Jordan Peele's art in this particular place is that he used these layers and these metaphors to tell this particular story about something that is very real, that affects all of us. And even though that I would say that America is unique in how it used slavery to be that stepping stone into world power, it's not, but racism in of itself shows up all over the world, and we see inceptions of racism and how it plays out, whether it be overtly or whether it be covertly. And when I look at this movie, to me it's like a cautionary tale about how these particular topics can play out, how they still exist, and how we can't, as much as we decide to sink ourselves into a place where we can just kind of just like put our hands off of it, it's still there, Yeah. But yeah, I want to go around the room and get you guys's thoughts. And also, by the way, like if anybody has like any type of questions or anything like that they want to put into the chat, please do so before we wrap up. It is just make sure that you do at Skeptic Haven so that they can go ahead and put it up. But I see a question specifically, I believe.
It was
Okay,
the same.
that was
It was the same person with another account. Yeah.
Then I want to address that as well, but never mind. Okay, so yes, it's a person who actually has a legitimate question. If you all wanted to put it in really quickly into at Skeptic Haven, please do so. But and while if you have something that you want to put that's legitimate, that's on topic without trolling, please do that. But I kind of just want to just go around the room for everyone and like some of their final thoughts that they had when they were actually watching this movie. Carrie, I'm going to start with you, then Alma, and then we're going to go to Mandisa last because we already know that Mandisa going to provide the mic drop moment.
Oh, so damn right.
Yeah. But yes, Carrie, go ahead.
So for me, I'm looking forward to finishing the last 40 minutes or so of this movie. Even with the spoilers, that just makes it that much more interesting for me. I feel like most people when and this kind of like goes into the little stuff in the chat over there. When people want to come in and throw shit like what ifs, I wish that we had a good way to shut that shit down very quickly, other than because like I can't just ban somebody standing in front of me using the hard R. Unfortunately, I wish I could. So like, what do we do? How do we shut them up from the jump? I've got a 24-year-old that works for me who is a fucking problem because he uses the hard R. I need to shut that shit down immediately. Yes, HR is dealing with it, but how does my young Black coworker stop that shit? How do I support her? You know what I mean? I can talk to HR all day long, but how do I actively support this girl without decking this asshole, you know? I feel like movies like this really make that kind of question come to the forefront for us, and we need to pay attention and just pay attention and stop being assholes. Just stop being assholes. It's not. I don't know why that's so hard. Just stop being assholes.
I feel that. Alma, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, people are just they just want to. Seems that they just want to hate people for no reason, and it seems also that it's their own inferiority complex that comes to play, because it seems like there is a necessity for them to feel superior to somebody. They don't care to whom. If there is something that I can do to make me feel better about myself, either like, oh, I am just a little bit lighter than that guy, so I am a little bit better. It seems that there is a huge problem about it, that people are just so into the hate right now that they are willing even to support people that are going against their own interest just because they hate the same people they hate. You know, as I saw it when Donald Trump started to be president and everything, people were so willing to follow him to the edge of the earth just because he hates the same people that they hate. That was it. There was no more meaning to that. And I think this kind of movies kind of reflect that reality back to us.
Well said. We have, the hate that you hate that actually keeps you from being able to, think about your own interests. And we also have Carrie saying, stop being assholes, which I agree. But Mandisa, take us home.
Okay. So, for me, another aspect of the movie that was great. It plays into the horror genre as well, where Black folks or Black characters are usually killed off first for the most part. And that says a lot about, the the white dominated space of horror and in movies, and the fact that now there are Black protagonists in horror movies that can live and survive, not just in those types of settings like that is, historical fiction, but also in the movie genre, because we also have to look at that, about how racism has even played itself out in Hollywood. Remember, for the longest time, Blacks were subjugated to certain roles in Hollywood films. The role of the servant, the role of the villain, the role of, and so it's about definitely dispelling these very institutional notions and definitely stereotypes, and bringing about new horror stories, creating and also elevating Black stories, and Black stories that are told by Black folks and that carry a very powerful message. So that says something about the support for for that industry, and Black producers and directors, and so it's all encompassing to me. It really does. And so I I really think that there's so many plays on things with Get Out. And these are things that I think that everyone should be thinking of, and it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to process, but it certainly has brought like horror to a whole new level. And also it makes these types of stories worth being interested in and worth producing more, without it becoming trauma porn, because that is a concern for me, that we become so immersed in it that we don't see any solutions. So and I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm glad it had a better, a happier ending, because there is a way to see the light. There is a way to overcome it if we keep at it, keep being consistent. Carrie, you asked about how to support your Black coworker. What Rosie did in the film, like Cynthia said, in theory was good, right? She should have spoken up for her partner when the cop asked him for his ID. That was a thing that she should have done. But the thing is to do it more consistently and to do it genuinely, right, and to do it in a way that we are leading by example, and continuing to do these things so that folks know that you really are an ally to them. So right. there's so much that we as Black folks especially have had to unpack over the years, and we just want, and people of color, right? There are often things that we have to unpack when it comes to these things, especially when we are aware of the issues at hand. And we just want people to know that you get it. It doesn't mean that you have to embody all of it, but that you get it, and that you are going to join in these fights with us. So
exactly,
that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And no, totally. Like, I think that like one of the main things, and thank you for that, Mandisa. Really, that was like dope, especially when you were talking about being genuine. The best way, anytime that you can ever, if you happen to be the person that belongs to the dominant group, the best way to be an ally is to be genuine with your allyship. And if you feel that there is an issue that you want to champion or help support, that's well and good. But make sure that the issue that you're doing it for, you are allowing the person who happens to be affected by that issue the most to lead. And I think that that's something that could be something that's been told to a lot of allies. Like, you can utilize, your platforms, your positions of power and things of that nature in order to help those who are marginalized and oppressed. But you have to let those people who are marginalized and oppressed lead, because don't nobody know about their oppression and marginalization more than them, right? So this was a great movie. And usually, like, I'm not a big horror fan, only because I have such an overactive imagination, and I'm always concerned about having really bad dreams. I think about that. I think the last movie that I watched that I had, like, I couldn't sleep for like a good 2 weeks was the horror film that Halle Berry was in. I forgot what it was called. But it was basically when she was possessed, with the ghost of another girl who was killed in the fire, and she kept on. Anyway, that movie freaked me out. It didn't help that I was still a Christian at the time, so I think that now
that's what I was saying at first. That now when I see those, I start to laugh instead of being scared. Like
I agree, and I
that got ruined for me.
right. I know, like it's a little bit easier for me now that that I know like a lot of the stuff is made up. But I would tell like my 2-year-old, he'll come and like, "Mommy, I'm scared," just like that, and then like I'm like, "Baby, it's a monster," and I was like, "The monsters are not real. Witches aren't real." Hey, Mr. Rogers made a whole song about witches aren't being not real. So listen to that.
We love Mr. Rogers.
We do.
Yes.
We do. I said Mr. Rogers is also great. And one more thing, guys, we have another super chat. Yeah. Dan D says, "Hi, friends." Thank you,
Hi, Dan.
Thank you, Dan D, for your $10, your support to Skeptic Haven. We obviously and very much so appreciate it. And and this comes to the point where I can tell you guys how you can also support the show. So yes, just like Michael Beverly and Dan D also gave to our super chat, you can also become a patron. So if you go to www.patreon.com//Skeptic Haven, you too can become a patron and actually support the channel. We are actually expanding program, bringing on more hosts so that we can expand the conversation and also be more diverse in our telling of our lives as people who happen to be on the skeptical, humanist, agnostic, non-believing track. And we also like to thank our current patrons for all your support. We thank Miss Helen Greene, Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Eric Ozols, Rion, Deneen Murphy, Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. Thank you guys so much for your patronage and also supporting Skeptic Haven. I also like to thank our crew for all the work that they do. And make sure, yes, as you can see at the bottom, please don't forget our other shows that we have every week. Global Atheists and Women Atheists Unload. Let's Talk on Sunday. We have the Sunny Spot by Sunny Shell. We also have the Secular Soapbox that comes on. So we are actually broadcasting all week long. So yes, I'm going to read now. Tuesdays is the Secular Soapbox. Thursdays is the Sunny Spot. Saturday is the Global Atheists and also Women Atheists Unload. And Let's Talk on Sunday, which is a call-in show. So please make sure you guys are checking out all of our other programming that's happening right here at Skeptic Haven. And like I said, we are rolling out more shows. We are bringing on more hosts, and we're also looking for volunteers. So if you guys want to be able to, do things like call screening or, producing or things of that nature, please contact Wes D. Sturdivant at gmail.com. It's down there. Just read the scrolling part. Just read all that. But yes, and we're also looking for volunteers for producing and booking and call screening. So again, if you're interested, contact Wes. His email, Gmail, is right below. You all like that? I did all that. And also, please, 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 please support the work of Black non-believers. We're talking about Get Out, but we also have the president and founder of Miss Mandisa Thomas that is on with us, who absolutely does a wonderful bang-up job guesting on our shows. She also does another show along with Edith Gray called In the Cut on every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 Central. But you can go to youtube.com/sleeve/Black Non-Believers Inc. to subscribe. And you can also donate to Black Non-Believers by going to blacknonbelievers.org/donate. We also have merch there as well. And all of those things help the national organization and also supports people like me who happen to be affiliates in our particular city, so we can spread the good news and the gospel of not believing in things that you can't prove to exist.
I like that.
We love you guys. We love you.
I don't have to add that on to anything. I don't have to add anything onto that. Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you for being our Chicago affiliate leader. Yay!
Yay! It's cool. It's very, very cool. But yes, guys, I just want to thank you again for being here today. Thank you guys for the conversation about Get Out. And I would even tell everybody that's in the audience, thank you, Mandisa. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Alma. Remember all the things that I said to do before. Support Black non-believers. Support Skeptic Haven. Support everybody that's on these particular platforms, because a lot of our hosts also have their own channels. So go to their channels and support them as well, okay? Do that. Thank you for all the people who actually gave to today's stream. We really do appreciate you very, very much. And I would like to leave you with this. Seek Elisa, people, and stay woke.
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. Guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.